Hello students, welcome to the class. Now I am starting today your entrance special. In entrance, basically you will have to remember that what we have read and what we are knowing, that has to be used in a proper way. So in order to use, I am beginning today the lecture first, that is from optics. So optics 1. I am keeping this thing in mind that you have the idea of optics. You have already learnt the derivation portion. So in derivation portion I will be not going. But if you have the desire to clear the entrance by reading less, then it is impossible. Those who have the desire to clear the entrance by reading less and getting more marks, it is impossible. यो कुरा ध्यान दिनै पर्छ कि कम पढेर इन्ट्रान्समा नाम निस्किदैन. It is the maximum portion of your studies that result will be useful in the entrance examination. So you have to give a deep rethinking of your learning process and hard work is required. So let us begin with optics. So पहिलो कुरा यो बुझ्नु पर्छ हामीहरुलाई that optics that we know is basically a study of light and vision. अब हेर, लाइट पनि इम्पोर्टेन्ट छ, vision पनि इम्पोर्टेन्ट छ. किन? लाइट भएपछि if the vision is not proper, that has got no meaning. If vision is there, no light is there, that has no meaning. So it is relation of light and vision. अब यो कुरा बुझ्नु पर्छ, ऑप्टिक्स को स्टडी इन जनरल we do in two part. One part is your ray optics and one part is your physical optics. Basic fundamental thing you have to understand. This is basically your medical aspect of optics, whereas this is engineering of optics. Now it tells about the behavior of light. It tells about the behavior of light, whereas this physical optics gives you the answer to the question, what is light? What is light is being answered by this part of physical optics. Some scientists treat light as a wave, then they say it as wave optics. And some scientists treat it as a particle, then they say quantum optics. And some scientists behave both light and particle, so there is dual nature. That is the acceptable one. Now what is important to understand, यो कुरा बुझ्नु पर्छ, we are basically concerned with wave optics and ray optics. This is also your geometrical optics. Why? It is based on the geometry of a straight line and other properties of Euclid geometry we study. अब यो कुरा बुझ्नु पर्छ, in ray optics we have to deal with the object whose dimension is very large as compared to wavelength of light. Light को wavelength भन्दा object को dimension धेरै ठुलो हुन्छ, whereas in wave optics the dimension of obstacle or object is comparable to the wavelength of light. Light को average wavelength comes in the region 10 to the power minus 6 centimeter, minus 6 meter. This is the average wavelength of light that we will study in more detail in diffraction. So यो basic difference भयो ray optics and wave optics. Now we will begin our study with the ray optics itself, and we will try to see that what are the hidden concept behind the ray optics, and then we will switch over to the wave aspect of the light. Now we have to introduce certain basic terms. In order to start the study of optics, basically ray optics, we have to explain हामीहरूलाई certain terms लाई बुझ्नु पर्छ. That you already know, but then also I will try to discuss the meaning. First is the source. Source of light. Source of light दुई टाइप को सोर्स हुन सक्छ. Like a point source. This is point source. Like an extended source, which is made up of points. So point source and then extended source. This is extended source can be supposed to be treated as made up of a number of point sources. Our point source of light and extended source of light. On other basis, we can say self-luminous non-luminous. Self-luminous you have studied in your junior classes as a candle, sun, and non-luminous like your book, moon, etc. Now you see, if I talk about that how this marker is visible to you, basically the light coming from the source and then reflected by it goes to your eyes, and so it is visible to you. The same marker is there, but if I keep it in the back, it is not visible to you. Why? The light is not able to reach you. So this is also a source of light, but this is non-luminous source of light. This is non-luminous source of light. So after discussing the source of light, we have to talk about object. Object can be your point object, and then extended object, so object can be, now what is object? Anything which we see, which we are capable of seeing, that can be treated as the object from which the light is able to reach our eyes. So this is object. Now one more thing you should understand about source, that source can be isotropic also and anisotropic also. Source can be isotropic. What is isotropic? Like a bulb which sends the light in all direction in a homogeneous medium. So it is isotropic like a bulb. And anisotropic. And also anisotropic we can, which does not gives the direction in all direction in the medium, homogeneous medium, like laser. So laser is a anisotropic, but this is not required in our discussion of ray optics. So you should understand this thing. Now when we talk about object, source, then it comes about medium. Why medium is important? Because medium can be homogeneous and non-homogeneous. If homogeneous, we are talking about homogeneous medium, that means density remains same. So homogeneous medium. Density remains same. If the density is different at different point in the medium, then the light will change its direction. So homogeneous medium is also an important point that you should understand, that we are talking about the light, propagation of light in a homogeneous medium. Then the matter comes about this medium can be your transparent, through which the light can easily pass, like glass, water, etc. Then translucent. In translucent medium, partially the light can pass. For example, paper is there, paper, oiled paper, sometime you will see in window pane also, in window glass also, light can pass, but you cannot see carefully, you cannot see clearly. So that is also translucent in nature. And then one is opaque. That is what? That is basically wooden sheet, through which light cannot pass, iron sheet, through which light cannot pass. So these are the basic terms that we should understand definitely before beginning our discussion on optics. Now we should certainly understand the ray and beam. Ray, it is direction of flow. Light is basically made up of photon, light, photon. And what is photon? It is energy packet. Rest mass 0. Rest mass 0. Rest mass. So light is basically the direction of light ray is basically the direction of energy flow. Now photon is a energy packet. So if the photon is going in this way, different photon, it is not like a wire. You can treat ray as a pipe, that in pipe all photons are moving in same direction. All photons are moving in same direction. So ray is the direction of propagation of light energy, photon. So ray, direction of propagation of photon. Now next thing is there to understand beam. Bunch of light ray constitute the beam. So next is beam. So what question can be asked from this section? In ray, all photons are moving in same direction, whereas in beam they can move in different direction. So in beam, bunch of ray. In beam, photon can move in different direction. Photon can move in different direction. For example, if I take a parallel beam, this is the parallel beam, photons are moving in same direction. If I take a diverging beam, you see photons are moving in different direction. And if you take the radius here, this r and this r is greater than r, you see. So in beam the photons are moving in different direction. It can be converging also. It can be converging also. You see, radius is decreasing. Radius is decreasing, so this is converging. In this also photons are moving in different direction. One has this direction, one has this direction, one has this direction, in this direction. So this fundamental difference between ray and beam should be clearly understood to you people. Next thing is there to understand. After understanding the beam, after understanding the ray, next thing we are supposed to understand, light travels in a straight line. Now a statement we have to deeply analyze. Light travels in a straight line. This thing we have to deeply analyze. What does it mean? If basically my intention is to draw your attention towards the basic fundamental idea of shadow formation. So what is I want to say? I want to tell you source. Source we can take in two forms: extended point. We can talk object also in two forms. So extended object is there and point object is there. But one thing you should always know about the shadow formation that we will be discussing right now. Any object which diverges the light rays are visible to we people. If the light rays are diverging from an object, this is real object and it is visible, and it is visible to the human eye. Whereas if the rays are converging, this is virtual object and human eye cannot see it. If the rays are converging from an object, that object is virtual, human eye cannot see it. Human eye cannot see the virtual object. This thing also has to be kept into mind. Our design of eye is in such a way that we can see only those rays, only those objects which diverges the rays. If it is diverging, we are able to see it. Otherwise, we are not able to see it. Though it is formed, image is formed, but it is not formed in the retina, so we are not able to get the signal of its presence. So यो कुरा ध्यान दिएर बुझ्नु पर्छ. अब in source we are talking about point source and extended source, object, point object, extended object. Now formation of shadow, if we talk, here is a point object. point source, and here is a point object. So 4 cases are there: point source, point object, point source, extended object, extended source, point object, extended source, extended object. 4 combinations are possible. If a point source is there and a point object is there, here this object should be opaque. Here we can observe that and here we can get the shadow. Here we can get the shadow. This is the shadow region, and this is your screen. So what is essential to remember? For shadow formation, source is also required, object is also required, and screen is also required. For shadow formation, source is also required, object, opaque object is also required, and screen is also required. So this is your point source and point object. Now if I am taking a point source and extended object, then you see in this also you will observe that if here is a coin, you will get the shadow of the coin. This is your shadow. This is your screen. Now here what question can be asked? If the distance between object, suppose this is coin, if the distance between object and screen is reduced, then what will happen to the shadow? Its size will increase or decrease. Or if a difficult question is framed, then they can talk about, suppose this distance is your x, this distance is your d, this radius is your r, and this radius is your capital R. As you see from here, the triangle, this triangle and this triangle, a smaller triangle, bigger triangle and a smaller triangle is similar. So as you can get x by d is equals to r by r. So if the distance x is given, d is given, r is given, you can easily find the value of r. So r is equals to r into d by x. So area is equals to pi r square. So by this you can find the area of the shadow. This thing also you can understand in a very careful way. Now the other, so we have seen point source, point object, point source, extended object. This thing we have seen. Now it is the turn of extended object, point source, and extended object, extended source, extended object. So if I talk, there is an extended source and here is the point object and here is the screen. Extended source, point object. You see here the shadow is formed, but from here the ray of light will go, from here the ray of light will go, and no shadow is formed. No shadow will be formed on the screen, because the shadow formed by is lighted by this side of the light source and this side of the light source. So no shadow is formed. So this is also very important, that if extended source is there and point object is there, no shadow is formed on the screen. This is the condition when no shadow is formed. This is basically the fundamental thing that you know from your childhood discussion of the optics. Now next thing is there about extended source and extended object. Now here you see, this is extended source and this is extended object. Now two conditions are possible. Extended source is bigger than the extended object. Extended source is smaller than the extended object. Here you see. Here if we keep the screen, then you see, here the ray of light will go, here the ray of light will go. Maximum the light will go in this region and maximum the light will go in this region. So this portion is your complete dark, and this is called umbra, and this portion is your gray, and this is your called penumbra. So this is your so what I mean to say here, that if this is the suppose coin and I am giving you the picture on coin, if the screen you have taken here, this portion is completely dark, this portion is complete dark, this portion is complete dark, and this is your umbra, whereas this portion is your gray portion, gray and less dark, and this is your penumbra, and this is your white, that is complete light is there. Now the main question that can be framed from here, if we decrease the distance here, then what will happen to the dark portion and what will happen to the gray portion? If we decrease the distance, and if we increase the distance between object and screen, this is the screen, then what will happen? The same analogy can be applied here also. Now here you see, central portion is complete dark, that is umbra is complete dark, and this penumbra is the gray portion, this is here. So if we decrease the distance, that means this screen comes here, then what will happen? This size has increased, then umbra region dark portion will increase, and if we increase this distance, this comes to this region, then the size will further decrease, and if you go beyond a certain limit, then no dark region will remain. Therefore you might have observed that the shadow of aeroplane which is at very height, you will not get on the earth. This is the region that is explaining here. This is the behavioral aspect of this umbra and penumbra. Similarly, this matter can be extended to, this discussion can be extended to this situation also, when the extended source is smaller and then the extended object is larger than the source. Then what will happen to the dark region and gray region, that you can observe, and you will find that this situation is just reverse of this situation. If this distance is increased, the change is different. If this distance is decreased, the change is different, but the two situations are just reverse. So this basic idea of light, this basic introduction of light that you already know and that is related with your day-to-day life, and this fact is based on the concept that light travels in a straight line and therefore the formation of shadow takes place. So with this basic interest, basic discussion of umbra, penumbra, shadow formation, object and image, source, all these things, we are now in a position to discuss in detail about our normal discussion of the optics, that is reflection, refraction and all these things. So with this basic introduction, in our next class we will discuss about the reflection of light. Thank you.